Tonight, the story of a teenage boy and his little sister whose lives were changed forever one night by a stranger at the door. Though they suffered a terrible crime and unfathomable loss, they show us it is possible to heal, even to forgive.
Imagine now that it's 1979. A little place called Okarche, Oklahoma. And to be frank, the Douglases didn't quite live in Okarche proper. They preferred a modest little place way out by itself, miles beyond the streetlights. But mention the Douglas name back in '79, and this would be the location people would be apt to think of: the Putnam City Baptist Church of Oklahoma City, where the Reverend Richard Douglas and family had established a remarkable reputation.
Richard Douglas was one of the most influential Baptist pastors in Oklahoma, and at the time was pastor of a 3,000-member church.
We became the people who we are because my parents were so strong. We lived a life that he would want us to live and learn the lessons he wanted us to know.
Pastor Douglas preached his first sermon at 16, and once he'd grown into a husband and father, took his little family all the way down to the jungles of Brazil, where he and they spent their happiest years in a missionary outpost. So, autumn '79. 16-year-old Brooks was an advanced football-playing senior in high school. Leslie, a precociously pretty 12-year-old, was in middle school. Dad was busy and all over Oklahoma, a chaplain at the State House, visitor of prisoners at McAllister Penitentiary, even preaching a bit on early morning television. But the pastor and his wife, Charity, began at home.
Their door was always open. They really, truly cared about people and where they were and how they could help them and how they could serve people.
It was that generosity and openness that would come to haunt them, of course. It was October 15th, a Monday. Everybody home.
My mom was in the kitchen fixing dinner, and Leslie was in the kitchen with her.
It was Brooks who answered the knock at the door. People called in all the time at the pastor's house. This one he didn't recognize, a bearded stranger who wanted a favor. And no one felt the evil then. As it entered the house, Pastor Richard Douglas and his wife Marilyn shot to death. 16-year-old Brooks and his 12-year-old sister Leslie, each shot twice, were hogtied and bleeding beside the bodies of their parents.
If I was going to live, I needed to make a decision. I remember thinking, as long as I can draw a breath or even twitch a muscle, I need to keep trying.
Despite being shot twice herself, Leslie had somehow escaped her bonds and made her way to the kitchen.
I looked up and Leslie came running in with a knife and cut me loose.
You're the one who got things going afterwards.
Right, right.
Where did that come from?
I don't know, I guess that internal drive that you just think, I want to live, I want to be here, I have to do something, I can't just lay here.
3 weeks after the shooting, Brooks and Leslie were spirited out of the hospital and taken to a secure location, still under police guard. By the early weeks of 1980, Brooks and Leslie Douglas had healed sufficiently to return to school. Leslie, the cheerleader and high school homecoming queen, went on to college, then graduate school, became first a teacher, later an assistant principal, had a family, 2 children of her own. Brooks finally struggled through college and went to law school. For Brooks and Leslie Douglas, the capture of the killers appeared to put an end to their ordeal. Little did they know.
Did you have any idea how much you still had to go through, even though they caught him?
Oh, heavens no. No idea.
The jury came back and sentenced Ake to life for each of the murders and to 200 years each for the shootings of the children.
But wait a minute. Stephen Hatch, who did not fire a weapon, faced execution, but Ake, the trigger man, got life. Brooks was floored.
As I heard the decision read, what was going through my mind was that I could just see my parents dying and knowing that they would never be fully avenged.
In 1990, 11 years after the murders, just out of law school, just about broke, Brooks decided, almost on a whim, to run for the Oklahoma State Senate.
Was it that frustration with the system that made you decide to go and finish your law degree and to get involved in politics?
I remember feeling helpless and looking for what are ways that I can begin to gain a little bit of control over what's happening to me.
He won. It was, need we say, an upset. It made him, at 27, the youngest senator in Oklahoma history. It was in his second year in the Senate when Brooks found the cause close to his heart.
Victims' rights was simply one of those things that nobody talked about.
But of course, that was the core experience of his life. Did he know how the system treats victims of crime? Oh, yes, he did. And so he introduced Oklahoma's first Victims' Rights Act.
The jury never hears one word about the family. We're not considering how brutal that crime was. This person took another individual's life in these cases.
Brooks Douglas was restless. The man who'd helped murder his parents had been executed. The shooter was behind bars for life. And Brooks seemed unsure where he belonged. 3 terms in the Oklahoma Senate was enough. He started a business, sold it, served as an Army officer in the Middle East, enrolled in Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, where he met and married Julia. He and Julia had 2 children, settled down in California. And then Brooks decided that maybe he could do some acting and writing.
I was teaching a writing workshop, and Brooks came to the class, and he pitched 3 ideas. One a sitcom, one a drama, and he proceeds to tell me about his life. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A story about justice and vengeance becomes a story about forgiveness. And I thought that was a very unique, important story.
He said, "That's the one you need to write." And I said, "Well, I don't think I can write it. It's too personal and it's too painful." But he convinced me that I should try it.
He hired Brown to co-write and direct his movie. He raided his bank account, then went fundraising among friends and family, scraped together a couple of $1 million, poured 3 years into his labor of love, cast Hollywood actors, as well as some of his friends, and then called it Heaven's Rain, for reasons his father would have understood. After a Los Angeles opening, Heaven's Rain is in release in Oklahoma and Texas and the Southwest. Brooks spends much of his time now promoting the movie, often speaking after group screenings. It's found its early audience among Oklahoma churchgoers.
Could have just said no, forget about it.
You know, forgive someone or something that's happened, or be forgiven. And these are all very old lessons. That's not anything I came up with. This is what my dad and my mom taught me, and what my faith has taught me. And I wanted people to see who my dad was, who both of my parents were, and the work that they did and the lessons that they taught me.
What do you want people to take away from this movie of yours?
The power of forgiveness and the importance of it. If as individuals, as people, if we're going to move on past the things of our past, we've got to find a way to forgive or be forgiven.
I just look at it as that you have to forgive or your heart's not clean and you just can't move on. You just dwell on it and dwell on it, especially when people have hate for people. I couldn't go on hating these men because that reflects in your own life. If you have hate for people, it makes you a hateful person. And I don't want to live like that the rest of my life.
Haight and Hatch did some horrible things. They threw some huge curveballs our way. But it's always up to me. Every day that I wake up, it's up to me whether I want to really live a full life or not.